Hey guys, I'm Andrea and we're at Spa de Soleil. And if you don't know about us already, we are a personal care manufacturer. So if you ever thought to create your own skincare line or your own beauty brand, we're the ones that you go to. Today, we're speaking to one of our R&D chemists, Tama Tanti.
Hello.
Hi. And we are talking about a very popular ingredient, but one that people don't necessarily know everything about, hyaluronic acid.
Woo.
Said it right.
Yes. Yeah. So that's actually really funny. I speak to a lot of, clients and suppliers and vendors, and they always kind of seem to mispronounce this word. But Andrea, you definitely said it right. Hyaluronic acid is what we'll be talking about today. Hyaluronic acid is also nicknamed HA. It's also called hyaluron. And sometimes in certain instances, you'll also see the name sodium hyaluronate. Okay, so many names, which really means hyaluronic acid in general.
Okay, yeah. Well, good. So now at least we know how to pronounce it.
Yes.
So tell us, what is hyaluronic acid?
So hyaluronic acid is an ingredient we use in cosmetics. It's really a naturally occurring, kind of like a gooey polymer fluid, if you will. Mm-hmm. This is an ingredient that is found in our bodies. It surrounds the joints in your bodies. It acts as a lubricant, shock absorber, if you will, for our joints.
Okay.
Now, how does this get into our cosmetics? Well, it has many really good properties. So in terms of use for our skin and cosmetic products in general, it really acts as a humectant, and what that means is it's an ingredient that absorbs a lot of moisture and water, and it's really good for the retention of water as well. Okay. So we would use it when we want to tackle cosmetic problems like helping with skin firming or skin rejuvenation and just regular hydration.
What everybody wants, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell me, other than water retention and making my skin look more firm or more plump, what is it good for? Like, what are the benefits of using hyaluronic acid? Right.
So hyaluronic acid, besides being able to absorb a really good amount of water, it's in combination with certain other ingredients, it acts as kind of a function to not only just maintain the water, but to keep the water in conjunction with other ingredients such as the oils that you may find in a cream or lotion. Mm-hmm. So even though it's, like I said, I keep mentioning moisture and water retention, that's a big role in perhaps like a cosmetic product,
right.
But it works really well when you combine it with things like oils, which will also prevent the water that is retained by the hyaluronic acid from escaping into the atmosphere or drying.
So in a way, it kind of makes your product work a little bit better.
Yes.
Than if it weren't there.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you mentioned where it's naturally found, but obviously we're not extracting hyaluronic acid from our bodies and putting it in our cosmetics. So where does the hyaluronic acid that we use come from?
Right. So the hyaluronic acid that we use come from is it's really made from natural resources such as plants and things like that. And nowadays, a lot of the chemical suppliers, they do a fermentation process. Fermentation, really quickly, is kind of converting sugars into alcohol. So, you start with similar compounds to glycerin and things like that. That is also a humectant, very similar to hyaluronic acid. I would say probably not as potent, but what you would do is you would ferment this type of sugar type of molecules and converts into alcohol. And then the alcohol that you would get is, being the natural biopolymer fluid that you would get as hyaluronic acid.
Mm-hmm. So, is it considered an alcohol or not?
So it's not necessarily considered an alcohol, but it has alcohol functional groups in organic chemistry. So what that means is it has a OH group, an oxygen and hydrogen group attached to a long chain of polymers. So yeah, that's kind of what you'll get when you talk about the chemical structure. Yeah.
All right. So when would be the best time to use hyaluronic acid?
Hyaluronic acid, so it depends on the type of product. Obviously, hyaluronic acid in general can be used in almost any really cosmetic product that is for the skin. you'll have your serums where there'll be a higher concentration of hyaluronic acid. I would say in general, just because it does maintain and retain a lot of water in general, it's really good to use when you're first waking up and when you're first going to bed.
Oh, to bed. I would think that only when waking up, because when I leave the apartment, I want to look all plump and firm.
Yes.
But bedtime too.
Bedtime too. And like I said, in general, you can, for the most part, use it throughout the day. But like I said, during your sleep, we actually sweat quite a bit when we sleep. That's why when we wake up, we're usually always thirsty.
Right.
And so, in general, your skin will also dry during your sleep as well. So, depending on the weather and the climate as well. So that's why, in general, if you were to use a product that contains a higher amount of hyaluronic acid, we usually recommend using it in the mornings and in the nighttime, especially those two instances.
Okay, good to know. I mean, I know we wake up thirsty, but we all grab coffee instead of water. Okay, so is it safe to use with other ingredients, or do I have to be careful and when I'm using hyaluronic acid, maybe not use other ingredients?
Right, so hyaluronic acid, for the most part, it's fairly safe for the skin. A lot of hyaluronic acid itself goes a very long way. So I didn't really touch on this, but hyaluronic acid comes in many forms from the suppliers. It can come in powders. It can come already diluted in water, for instance, 1% hyaluronic acid. And it makes a very, kind of gooey type of material. And so basically, when you combine that with other ingredients, it's very similar to combining glycerin, kind of like the key humectant that we always use in cosmetic products. And so hyaluronic acid, like I said, is just a slightly more potent water retaining type of ingredient. So for the most part, if it's a water soluble formulation, hyaluronic acid will be perfectly fine to use.
Okay, because a lot of people use retinol or they use different types of chemical peels on their face, but hyaluronic acid is safe to use at any time.
Right.
Okay. And then from what I'm understanding, because it's a little gooey and thicker, I mean, I've seen so many serums out there that say, like, they claim a crazy percent of hyaluronic acid, but it looks like water. Or they'll say pure hyaluronic acid and it's super liquidy.
Right.
So what's happening there?
Right. So hyaluronic acid, like I said, it's hard to vouch for other manufacturers, other companies, who make those claims. But in general, hyaluronic acid, like I said, a little goes a long way. So if you're using pure hyaluronic acid, we're talking powder form, and we dissolve in water, you will probably be using maybe 0.1%, let's say. And that will form already a viscous type of material with just only hyaluronic acid and water. And so, sometimes with these suppliers and different products, when they claim a higher percentage, they could be claiming hyaluronic acid that's already diluted in water, let's say 1%, and then they're adding 5% of that. So now that 0.1% of hyaluronic is actually not really 0.1% hyaluronic acid.
Got it. So tricks around label claims, basically.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see. What is the most interesting product that you have seen hyaluronic acid formulated in?
Let's see. Well, for me, I would say hyaluronic acid, just because of the popularity of the ingredient, I would say I've seen hyaluronic acid in many, many different types of products nowadays. There's really nothing in particular that's very special in terms of, hyaluronic acid making a product take that next step in terms of, skin creativity or anything like that.
Right.
It's much more of a staple right now. However, I will say I haven't really seen it too much being used on some more unconventional type of products. We're talking bath bombs, bubble baths, things like that.
All right,
so those are something that can be good potential.
New ideas, taking it from skin care to body care.
Yes.
Because it's good for overall skin.
Exactly, yeah. And so not to downplay the efficacy of the actual hyaluronic acid, but just because it's so popular and it's kind of a given that most creams and lotions I would expect to see an ingredient like that on the inky list.
Right. All right, so tell us one cool fact about hyaluronic acid that we still don't know.
Sure. So let's see. So this might be a little bit more technical. But hyaluronic acid, actually, most people think of it as one type of raw material and ingredient. But in reality, hyaluronic acid actually comes in many forms. And those forms take place in the actual molecular weight of the raw material or the compound that we receive from our vendors and suppliers. So it really breaks down into what we would call low molecular weight hyaluronic acid or high molecular weight hyaluronic acid. And those two just naturally are different in physical form and also for the use that you would have on our skin. So just really quickly, the lower molecular weight hyaluronic acid, arguably is penetrates the skin a lot easier just because of the lower molecular weight. Obviously, higher, the bulkier the molecule, it will be really difficult to penetrate our skin versus the higher molecular weight, people say that it's a lot more moisturizing. It just retains a lot more moisture. So it's kind of one of those things where, when you look on the product list, the inky, the ingredients name, doesn't always will say or specify what type of hyaluronic acid you're getting.
Okay.
All right. So that's kind of one tricky thing that a lot of suppliers and manufacturers and companies would do. Sometimes you may get cheated out of a good or perhaps a better type of hyaluronic acid for that purpose of that product.
Yeah. So not all hyaluronic acids come in the same form. They don't necessarily do the same things depending on their molecular weight.
Exactly.
And we as a consumer don't necessarily know what we're getting in our product.
Right. And like we talked about before, a little goes a long way. And so sometimes it is really dependent on the formulator and the company to really, if they're claiming, moisturization or water retention, they should be choosing the correct hyaluronic acid to use for that product.
So depending on the function, let's say for a lot of our estheticians and spa salons, they should be asking us the question, what type of hyaluronic acid are we using? What kind of molecular weight are we using? Because, if they're looking for that deep skin penetration, they're going to want one form versus the other.
Absolutely, yeah. And but the reality of it is that it does get more complicated when that ingredient is combined with other ingredients, right? And so, many people always ask me as a formulator, oh, what type of products do you recommend? Oh, what type of products, out in the market that's the best for me? And it's really tough and difficult to say because in general, you should be choosing a product based on the ingredients that you would like to use and use it on yourself given a period over time to see if it has any effects on you negatively or positively before coming to a conclusion about that product, right? So like I said, sometimes with the higher or lower molecular weight hyaluronic acid, they're both actually, I would say, fairly good. I mean, not one is better than the other per se, but it's really dependent on the type of goals you want that product to be marketed as. Yeah.
All right. Very cool. Well, now we know.
Yep.
Thanks. All right. So question of the hour. Do you, Tamasat, use hyaluronic acid on your skin?
I do, and I do through the use of lotions and creams that I do. Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I wouldn't necessarily put the raw material on my skin.
Okay.
Yeah, because it can be a really interesting experience, especially if our viewers have kind of experience using or knowing what it looks like when it comes from the pure raw material form. Yeah, but I definitely use hyaluronic acid very frequently, every day, just daily routine. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So creams, lotions, serums, all forms, it all works.
All forms, shaving creams, even I've seen, in hair products, shampoos, conditioners. Yeah.
And then maybe bath bombs and body care.
Exactly.
You never know. All right. Thank you for talking to us about hyaluronic acid and hope you guys enjoyed.
Perfect. Anytime.